coming back to the Law and Crime Network. I'm Linda Kenny Bodden, and we're going to switch gears again, pivoting now to Florida, where both sides have officially rested in the trial against Florida dentist Charlie Adelson, who was accused of plotting the murder of his former brother-in-law, Dan Markel. Now, Adelson was on the stand for the better part of 2 days, and he wrapped up his testimony this morning as he stands charged with first-degree murder and conspiracy to kill Dan Markel. The prosecution, as you know, believes the defendant conspired and actually was the mastermind to kill Florida State University law professor Dan Markel back in 2014 to end a heated custody battle with Adelson's sister, Wendi. The triggerman, Sigfredo Garcia, and his co-defendant, Catherine Magbanua, were already tried and convicted. Another co-defendant, the alleged hit person, Luis Rivera, pleaded guilty to second-degree murder. All of them are now behind bars. So let's go to some other defendants' testimony. Yes, we had another defendant on the stand from yesterday when he was under his direct exam by his own lawyer, specifically to his story about what happened to the victim in this case.
When you get to the house, you said you called Katie after your shower. Why did you call her?
To see if she was still planning on coming over and what time she was going to be there, because it was already like 10:15.
And did she come to your house that night?
Yeah, she said she was going to be leaving shortly. And I think I even said either text me or call me when you're on your way.
Did she actually come to your house that evening?
Yes, she did.
Okay. Around what time did she arrive?
She got there about 11 o'clock.
What happened when she arrived?
When she arrived to my house, she came in through the garage, entered into the kitchen from the side door like she always does. And she just looked panicked and upset. I mean, she walked straight in and gives me this big, tight hug and asked me, like, "Are you okay?" And I said, "Yeah, just a horrible day." But she looked more upset than I've ever seen her. I'm like, "Are you okay?" And she's like, "No, I'm not." I'm like, "What's wrong?" She's like, "Just come sit down. I need to talk to you."
Where did you go?
We walked into the living room.
And what happened when you got to the living room?
We sat down on the couch, and she started to talk to me. And she said, "Listen, this is all my fault, but I had no idea anything was going to happen, but this is totally my fault. I spoke in too much detail about your family's personal problems, about your sister, Dan Markel, and the $1 million offer."
What did you say?
I'm like, "What are you talking about?" And she's like, "My friend killed Dan, and he wants to be paid $1/3 of $1 million."
How did you react?
I was like, "What did you just say?" And she's like, "My friend killed Dan, and he wants you to pay $1/3 of $1 million."
What happened next?
I stood up, and I started cursing it. And I'm like, "What the fuck? Are you kidding me?" And she's like, "No." I'm like, Who did this? Who's your friend that did this?" And she's like, "I don't want to say. I can't say." And I said, Who was it?" And she just kept saying, "I'm not going to tell you." And I was like, was it Sigfredo? And she's like, "No, I'm not telling you." And I just walked in my bedroom and sat down on the edge of my bed.
What happened when you got in the bedroom?
She came into the bedroom, followed after me. She sat down next to me. She started telling me, like, "I'm so sorry. This is all my fault, but I didn't know any of this was going to happen." And I'm like, "Katie, I'm not going to be part of this shit. Like, I'm not going to be part of paying for a murder. This is insane." And she's like, "Look, if you don't pay in 48 hours, they will kill you." And I said, "Katie, I feel like I'm getting extorted now."
How did she respond to that?
She got really mad at me. She got angry, and she's like, "Look, I'm not extorting you." She's like, "I got dragged into this the same way you got dragged into this." She's like, "It's my fault for running my mouth the way I did, but I'm not extorting you. Like, I'm trying to help you." So she's like, she goes, "What are you going to do? You're going to go to the police?" She goes, "You go to the police, they'll kill you."
Did she tell you that they would just kill you, or they would also kill other people?
She said he'd come after you, he'd come after the family. Like, "Charlie, you don't have a choice. Just pay the money. You said you had the cash. You said you were going to pay a third. Like, just do it. Like, I'm trying to help you out."
What did you do then?
I said, Katie, I don't have $333,000 in cash. And she's like, you said you did. And I was like, no, I cash isn't I can write a check for $333,000. I don't need to take out a loan. And she's like, well, you have a ton of money in your safe. And I said, Katie, I don't have that much in my safe. I do have a lot. And I said, come take a look. And I walked over to my safe. I opened it up. And I'm like, here, take a look. And I took it out in piles and put it on the dresser next to us. And I said, go ahead and count. That's not $333,000.
And did she count it?
Yes, she did.
How much money did she count?
$138,000.
So it wasn't $100,000, it was $138,000.
Correct.
Okay, Catherine Lazar, you were with us here this morning. So supposedly there's $1 million now offered to kill Dan Markel. I don't know where it comes from, but it had to be known by Catherine McBonwois, because this is her lover who then puts her on the payroll, or her boss, or whatever she is to him. It's got some sordid relationship here. And supposedly the offer is not made, but then her friends go out and kill Markel, and they want a third of $1 million because they're going to extort him for it. But how did they even know there was an offer to kill Markel unless somehow he related? I don't think this helps him.
It does not at all. And all of these calculations are becoming very ridiculous, even for the jury, as they're hearing this. You're talking about numbers, 1 million, but then they only wanted $250,000. So what is going on? And the 1 million started supposedly because the Adelson's parents tried to offer Dan Markel 1 million so that Wendi and the boys could go and live in Florida near them. And that didn't obviously pan out. And that made a lot of friction within the Adelson family. And supposedly the argument is they hated Dan Markel more because of that. And because that $1 million, Dan Markel, Charlie Adelson was supposed to pay a third of that 1 million. So it's almost like you needed an accountant to who's going to pay what of that 1 million. And yeah,
amazing. So Adelson also testified that he told his mom not to go to the police afterwards. So let's hear why.
When you went to go pick up the checks, what happened, and what do you remember?
I remember walking in and saying hi to my mom, and she's like, oh, the checks are over there on the counter like you asked for. And I saw there was a white envelope and there was a stack of checks sitting there. And she said, what's Katie doing for you? And I thought we'd already addressed it, but she's working at the office. And I'm like, no, I told you she's not. She's like, well, $1,000 a month is a lot of money to pay somebody. And she's like, what exactly is she doing for you? And I said, it's a long story. And then she said, well, I'm your mom, like, tell me. Like, don't just tell me it's a long story. So this time she was like, and I was face to face with her, and she was more persistent in asking me, what the heck's going on? Are you still dating her? And I'm like, no, we're definitely not dating anymore. She's like, well, why are you giving her $1,000 a month? This makes no sense.
What happened next?
I told my mom, I wanted to tell somebody, because if I get killed, at least somebody will know where to look or what it could have been about. So I wanted my mom to know what happened, but I also didn't want her saying anything to anybody. So I told my mom, I said, listen, I'm going to tell you something, but I never want to talk about it again. I never want you to talk to me about it on the phone. Don't talk about it anywhere. And please, whatever you do, do not say anything to Dad. Do not say anything to Wendi. Do not try to make me go to the police, because I'm not going. You got to promise me all that, and then I'll tell you.
And what did you tell your mom?
I told her that the night of the 18th, I got extorted for $250,000.
How did your mom react?
She flipped out, and she's like, what do you mean? Like, what is this about? Like, you know who killed Dan?
What did she want to do?
She wanted to go to the police.
And what did you tell her?
I said, absolutely not. I said, it's not going to bring Dan back. I go, you're just going to end up getting me killed, or they'll come after somebody in the family.
So Bob Hilla, my thoughts is, you don't go to the police, absolutely not, because your son is involved in this. I mean, I'm just, I'm sitting there as a juror. Your thoughts?
Well, I mean, that's one alternative that the jurors are going to consider. I mean, they're going to discuss that probably at the end of the case. The other part of it is, does this whole explanation really, in the overall context of all the evidence, make sense? It's really the only explanation he can give in his defense, because the other alternative to that, he was involved in a contract killing.
Right.
So again, these things are not out of the realm of what could happen, but the jury's got to decide if they did happen.
Right. In light of whether or not the prosecution has proven its burden of proof, the defense can offer something so ridiculous that makes the prosecution burden easier. So we're going to take a quick break. More on the other side. Stay with us.